The smell of sawdust has followed me for half my life. It's in my clothes, my truck, and probably my lungs. You can scrub and shower all you want, but some things just stay with you. And maybe that's the story of my life. The things that stay. My name's Ethan Cole. I'm 46 years old. I build things. Houses. Decks. Sometimes dreams if the client's got enough money and patience. Every nail I've hammered. Every board I've cut. Paid for something, a meal. A mortgage. A moment of peace. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And in my book, that still counts for something. I've been married to Laura for 22 years. We've got 2 kids, Jake, 20. Just started community college while working part-time at the auto shop. And Emily, 16. The spark of this whole damn house. Plays volleyball like she's got lightning in her veins. Our place isn't much, 3 bedrooms. A porch I built myself. And a backyard that needs mowing more often than I'd like to admit. But it's solid. You walk across those floors, and you can feel the years under your feet. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, arguments, makeups. Life happened here, and that used to be enough. When Laura and I first met, she was working nights at a diner off Route 19. She smelled like coffee and vanilla lotion. And she had this laugh, sharp and contagious. Like it came from somewhere deep. I'd walk in just to hear it. Didn't matter if I was covered in drywall dust or sweat. She never seemed to care. She looked at me like I was something worth seeing. That was 24-year-old me, dumb, broke, hopeful. We rented a 1-bedroom apartment with creaky pipes and paper-thin walls. I promised her I'd buy her a real house one day. She laughed. Said she didn't need fancy. Just a man who showed up. And that stuck with me. Whatever happens, we show up for each other. That was our promise. Through all the long nights, the bills, the kids, the exhaustion, we showed up. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Maybe it's the years that wear people down, not in one blow, but in 1,000 small cracks. A late shift here. A forgotten anniversary there. One too many nights where we said, I'm fine, when we weren't. Laura used to talk to me about everything, about dreams. About the kind of vacations we'd take someday. Now, I can't remember the last time she looked at me when I talked. She's still beautiful. Still has that same soft laugh when she's with the kids. But when it's just us, it's like she's somewhere else entirely. Sometimes I catch her scrolling through her phone late at night, smiling at something I can't see. I tell myself it's nothing, that she's just tired. We're both tired. That's marriage. Right, you trade passion for partnership, fire for warmth. Still, there's this quiet space between us now, not loud enough to call a problem, but too wide to ignore. A silence that used to feel peaceful now feels hollow. I can fix a leaky roof, replace a beam, rebuild a porch from the ground up, but I can't fix whatever's slipping through our fingers. On good days, I convince myself it's just life, 2 people getting older, learning to coexist instead of collide. On bad days, I wonder if she's already halfway gone. Last week, I came home early from a job site. She was in the kitchen, humming to herself, looking out the window. When she turned, that smile, it wasn't the one I knew. It was polite, practiced, like you give a stranger at the grocery store. And for a second, I didn't recognize her. Or maybe I didn't recognize what we'd become. But then Jake walked in, joking about his new job. Emily asked for $20 for school lunch. And everything felt normal again. Dinner, dishes, TV, silence. Just another day, in a marriage that looks fine from the outside. Funny thing about routine, it's a kind of camouflage. You stop noticing what's dying underneath it. I still kiss her goodnight. She still says, love you. And maybe we both mean it. Or maybe it's just muscle memory at this point. Sometimes, late at night, when the house goes quiet, and I'm lying there, staring at the ceiling fan, spinning lazy circles. I remember that kid from 20 years ago, the one who thought love was simple. Just show up. Work hard. Keep your word. That's what men do. But lately, I'm not sure if that's enough anymore. She doesn't laugh at my jokes. She doesn't ask about my day. And when I look at her across the dinner table, I feel like I'm staring at a photograph of someone I used to know. Maybe she's just tired. I tell myself, Maybe it's just another season we'll push through. Or maybe I'm too used to excuses. Friday night. The sky hung low, bruised and gold. The kind of evening that makes you forget the world's got teeth. I'd just wrapped up a long week, 3 job sites, 2 inspections, and 1 argument with a client who thought YouTube made him an architect. All I wanted was a hot shower, a greasy pizza, and the quiet comfort of my couch. The drive home felt routine, the kind of repetition that numbs you. Same streets, same stoplights, same radio station droning about interest rates and sports scores. I thought about calling Laura, asking if she wanted me to pick up something for dinner. But I didn't. We hadn't talked much lately. Not unless it was about the kids, the bills, or what we were out of in the fridge. The closer I got to home, the heavier my chest felt. Not tired, just something else. A tension you can't explain. The kind you feel before a storm. When I turned onto our street, everything looked normal. Her car was there, parked crooked in the driveway, like she'd pulled in distracted. The living room lights glowed behind the curtains, drawn tight even though it was a warm evening. Everything looked perfectly ordinary. And that's what scared me. I stepped inside and called her name. No answer. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Then I saw her sitting at the kitchen table. The same table we'd bought secondhand our first year of marriage. Her hands folded in front of her like she was praying. She looked calm. Too calm. The kind of calm people find when they've already made a decision. She didn't smile. Didn't stand up. Just said 3 words that would change everything. We need to talk. That phrase. God. How many times had I heard it on TV? In movies, the prelude to disaster. But hearing it in your own kitchen? It's a different kind of sound. It's a hammer on your ribs. What's wrong? I asked. She looked down at her hands. Then up at me, eyes already distant. I've been suffocating. Ethan. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Suffocating, I repeated. In what? Laura, in the house we built, in the life you said you wanted. She swallowed hard. This isn't about you not providing. You've always been good to me. Too good. Maybe. But I feel like I'm disappearing. Like I'm just somebody's wife. Somebody's mom. I don't even know who I am anymore. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. Then she said it. I've met someone. The air left the room. Just gone. His name's Derek. Derek Vaughn. I knew the name. Marketing guy. Fancy billboards around town with his smug grin plastered across them. Drives a white Mercedes. Lives in the gated neighborhood with fountains in the front yard. I forced the words out. You mean the guy with the white Mercedes and no calluses on his hands? She didn't even flinch. It's not about money, she said quietly. He makes me feel alive. Alive. The word hit me harder than a fist. I stared at the woman I'd loved for half my life and thought, so this is it. This is how it happens. Not with shouting. Not with drama. But with words rehearsed in someone else's mirror. I sat down across from her. Hands trembling. Voice low. I built a life that kept you alive. I worked my body into the ground so you could feel safe. You didn't want life. Laura. You wanted fireworks. And fireworks don't last, they just burn out and leave smoke. She looked at me like I was already a memory. I'm leaving tonight, she said. I'm moving in with Derek tonight. I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Just like that. 22 years, and you've got it all planned out. I'm sorry, she said. Standing. My lawyer will. Don't. I cut her off. Don't you dare talk about lawyers in the same kitchen where we built a family. She hesitated. Ethan, no. I said. Standing now. You've got 10 minutes. Pack whatever you need. After that, you walk out that door and don't come back. Her lips trembled. But she didn't argue. She disappeared down the hallway. And I just stood there, too numb to move. Too stunned to feel. I heard drawers opening. Zippers. Hangers scraping. 10 minutes turned to 20. I didn't help. I didn't stop her. I just stood there, like a man made of concrete dust and disbelief. When she finally reappeared, she was carrying 2 suitcases, the good ones I bought her for our 20th anniversary. Her eyes were red, but her face was set like stone. I'll call the kids tomorrow, she said. No. I replied. You'll tell them yourself. You'll explain why their mother traded their father for a man with a view of the lake. She opened her mouth, but no words came. And then she walked past me out the door. Down the steps. Into the night. No slam. No tears. Just the soft click of the door closing behind her. That's how 22 years end. Not with a crash, but with silence. And standing there, in that silence, I realized something that hurt worse than anything else. She hadn't just left me. She'd left the version of herself that used to love me, and maybe that was gone long before tonight. The next morning, the house felt like a crime scene. Not because anything was broken, everything looked exactly the same, but because I knew what had happened here. The coffee maker still sat on the counter. Her mug was in the sink. Her coat hung by the door. All the little details of a life that used to mean us. Now they just looked like evidence of something that no longer existed. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at the empty chair across from me. By sunrise, I had made one decision: the kids were going to hear the truth from me. No sugarcoating. No lies. Laura's parents were hosting some church retreat weekend. That's where Jake and Emily had stayed while all this went down. I drove over early. The February air sharp enough to cut through bone. On the way, I practiced what I'd say, and realized there's no right way to tell your kids their mother traded your family for someone else's reflection. When I pulled up, they were waiting, Jake leaning against the porch rail, Emily scrolling through her phone. She smiled when she saw me. That's what broke me. That innocent, trusting smile. "Where's Mom?" she asked as we loaded their bags into the truck. I didn't answer right away. I waited until we were halfway down the highway, away from the house. Away from the people who might try to soften what had to be said. "Your mother moved out," I said finally. Jake looked up, confused. Emily froze mid-scroll. "What do you mean moved out?" Jake asked. "She's with someone else," I said. "Has been for a while." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a man. Jake leaned back, staring straight ahead. "Who?" he asked. "It doesn't matter," I told him. But it did. He was already looking it up before I finished the sentence. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "Does she still love us?" That question, it gutted me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, fighting the urge to lie. "This isn't about you," I said softly. "It's about her. What she wants. What she chose." Emily turned to the window, her reflection blurred by tears. Jake said nothing, just stared at his phone like it was the enemy. That drive home felt longer than any highway I'd ever paved. The first few weeks after she left were chaos, disguised as routine. I cooked dinners that burned, overwatered the plants, and learned the hard way that laundry has rules. But the kids, they adapted faster than I did. Jake buried himself in work and classes. Emily stayed late at volleyball practice just to stay busy. Laura called once that first week. Her voice sounded bright, artificial. "Hey, sweetie," she said to Emily. "How was school?" "Fine." Emily answered flatly. "I'll try to come to your next game," Laura said. But she didn't. Then it was one call every few days. Then once a week. Then not at all. It's strange how quickly people disappear from their own families. You think it'll be some long, slow fade, but no. It's sudden. One day they're everywhere. The next, they're just a ghost that texts on holidays. Emily won the district championship that spring. I sat in the bleachers, shouting her name like a fool. She looked up once, searching the crowd, and I saw it. That tiny flash of disappointment when she didn't find her mother's face. After the game, I sent a picture to Laura. The read receipt popped up almost immediately. No reply. Jake had his college orientation that summer. He kept his cool most of the time. But I saw it too, that look when another mom hugged her son goodbye. He just stood there, pretending it didn't matter. But it did. They say time heals. But time doesn't do the work you do. I had to show up every day. For them. For me. I learned how to braid Emily's hair before games. Learned Jake's favorite breakfast sandwich. Learned how to fill the silence Laura left behind without losing myself to it. Sometimes at night, I'd catch myself thinking about her, wondering if she ever thought about us. But then I'd remember the man she left for the lake house. The wine tastings. The fancy restaurants where loyalty isn't even on the menu, and that's when it would hit me. You can't teach loyalty to someone who's never had to earn it. So I stopped wondering where she was or what she was doing. I stopped checking my phone for calls that weren't coming. Instead, I focused on what mattered: 2 kids who still showed up. Still smiled. Still tried. The truth is, she left to find something better. But the thing she walked away from, the steady love, the quiet effort, the family that kept showing up, that's what lasts. That's what she'll never get back. And that realization, as bitter as it was, became my first taste of peace. Divorce papers have a certain smell. Paper and ink mixed with finality. You sign your name a few times, and suddenly, everything you built, every memory, every promise becomes a stack of documents in a manila folder. Laura didn't fight me on anything. Not the house. Not the kids. Her lawyer said she wanted to focus on herself. Maybe travel. Maybe start over somewhere new. Travel. That's what she called abandoning her family. The judge looked at me, a middle-aged man in work boots and a borrowed suit, and then at the empty chair where Laura should have been. When the gavel came down, she gave me full custody of the kids and the house. It felt less like victory and more like being handed a life raft in the wreckage of a ship. I drove home that day with the windows down. The wind loud enough to drown out my thoughts. The same house she called not enough was waiting for us. It was quiet. Still scarred from the storm, but it was ours. And somehow, that was enough reason to start rebuilding. Those first months were an education in everything I thought I already knew. Cooking became my new construction project. Eggs first scrambled into rubber, then pasta sticky disasters. Eventually, I learned the secret: patience. The same skill I used on job sites worked in the kitchen. 2. Emily stood beside me one night, laughing as I tried to flip pancakes. "You're getting better, Dad," she said. "That's the plan." I told her, "Just takes practice." And that was true for more than cooking. Jake helped where he could. He took over mowing the lawn, fixing the gutters. He grew quiet for a while, carrying his own version of loss. But every once in a while, I'd catch him smiling at something Emily said, and I'd know we were healing. Inch by inch, Emily still had her volleyball. She practiced every day like her life depended on it. I made it a point to be at every game. I learned how to braid her hair before she left for the bus. Not perfect, but she never complained. I sat in those bleachers, shouting her name louder than anyone else, because someone had to show her that showing up still mattered. There was a night months after the divorce when the three of us were having dinner at the table that used to feel so heavy with absence. Jake cracked a joke. Emily rolled her eyes. And for the first time, laughter filled that kitchen again. It didn't sound like the old laughter. It sounded stronger. Laughter rebuilt. Not borrowed. Somewhere along the line, I stopped waking up thinking about what I'd lost. Instead, I started noticing what I still had and what I was becoming. I didn't just become a single dad. I became a father twice over. One who cooked, cleaned, counseled, and still worked full days to keep the lights on. And somehow, in the middle of all that, peace found its way back into our lives. I fixed things, too. The cracked tile in the bathroom, the leaky faucet she always complained about, even the broken step on the porch she said she wanted to replace someday. I rebuilt every piece of that house. Every board. Every nail, not for her, but for us. And as the house took shape, so did we. The grief didn't leave. It just changed its form. It became motivation. A reminder that pain can either destroy you or shape you, depending on what you do with it. 2 years later, Jake graduated. He walked across that stage, tall and calm, shaking hands like he belonged there. I sat in the crowd, clapping until my hands hurt. When he spotted me, he smiled, that quiet, grateful kind of smile that says, "You made it, Dad." A few months after that, Emily led her team to the state finals. She played like fire every serve, every spike, like she was playing for more than a trophy. When they won, she ran straight into my arms, tears mixing with sweat. "We did it," she whispered. "Yeah," I said. "We did." At some point, the name Laura stopped coming up. Not because we hated her, but because she no longer belonged in the story we were writing. The kids stopped asking where she was, and I stopped wondering. We had our routines, our laughter, our peace. Our little house, once filled with grief and silence, had become something else entirely. A symbol of endurance. A place that proved that you can't control who leaves, but you can control who stays. And in staying, we found something that felt a lot like redemption. 4 years passed, not in leaps, not in milestones, just quiet. Steady days that stacked into something solid. The house that once echoed with grief now sounded like living again. Laughter over burnt dinners, arguments about curfews, the hum of life moving forward. Jake was working full-time as an engineer now. Emily was a senior, captain of her volleyball team, already talking about scholarships. And me, I'd finally learned what peace feels like, not loud, not triumphant, just steady. That afternoon was nothing special. Late September, I pulled into the driveway after a long day. Still smelling of cedar and paint, Emily's car was already there, home early. I remember smiling, thinking maybe she'd surprise me with dinner. When I opened the door, I heard voices from the living room. Then I saw her, Laura, sitting on my couch, thinner, pale. Her once polished appearance now brittle around the edges. The same woman who once walked out the door like she was stepping into a better life now looked like she'd been walking through hell. My body froze before my mind caught up. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Emily stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching like she wasn't sure whether to scream or cry. I called her. Laura said quickly. I just needed 5 minutes to explain. I looked at my daughter. She met my eyes and shrugged. She said it was important. Emily murmured. Laura took a shaky breath. Derek wasn't who I thought he was. She began. He changed. Her voice cracked. He tracked my phone, controlled who I talked to, where I went. And when I argued, he grabbed me. She rolled up her sleeve. There were faint marks on her arm, like ghosts of bruises that never fully healed. Part of me, the wounded, bitter part, wanted to say she deserved it. But I'm not that man. No one deserves to be broken. Even the ones who broke you. Still, pity wasn't the same as forgiveness. She looked around the room, eyes tracing the pictures on the wall. Jake's graduation photo, Emily holding her championship trophy, all moments she missed. All the proof of a life that kept going without her. He left me, she whispered. For someone younger, a trainer from his gym. She laughed weakly. I guess I'm not exciting anymore. The irony hung in the air like smoke. She had left for excitement, for a life that sparkled. Now the sparkle was gone, and she'd come crawling back to the life she once called suffocating. I want a second chance, she said suddenly. With my family. I stood there for a long time, staring at the woman who once swore she was suffocating beside me. Now she looked like she was drowning in the consequences. My voice came out low, measured. You had a family, Laura. You walked away from it. We didn't stop living. We just learned how to live without you. She flinched like the words stung. But I wasn't finished. You can't just show up years later and expect the door to open like nothing happened. You chose him. You chose yourself. And that choice has a cost. At that moment, Jake walked in from the kitchen. He froze, taking in the scene. Then he shook his head slowly. You've got to be kidding me, Jake, she said softly. Please. No. He cut her off. You don't get to please me. You missed my graduation, my job offer, every single thing that mattered. You chose to disappear. You don't get to walk back in just because life kicked you down. Laura turned to Emily. Desperate. Sweetheart, I know I hurt you, but I never stopped loving you. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but her voice didn't shake. You say you love us, but you didn't stay. You don't love people you walk away from. You love them by showing up, and you didn't. Laura started crying, really crying this time, the kind that shakes your whole body. 4 years ago, I would have comforted her. Now, I just stood there, feeling nothing but clarity. Love isn't words, Laura, I said quietly. It's staying when it's hard. You never stayed. She looked at all three of us, her old family, and saw what she'd lost. A bond she couldn't buy back. A home she didn't belong to anymore. When she finally moved toward the door, her steps were slow, almost hesitant. No one stopped her. No one asked her to stay. The door closed behind her, softer than the first time. Maybe because there wasn't any weight left in it. This time, she didn't just leave the house. She left the story, and for the first time in years, the silence that followed didn't feel like loss. It felt like peace. 6 months later, the air feels different, lighter. Still, Jake's working full-time at an engineering firm downtown, long hours. Steady paycheck. Proud shoulders. Emily's off to college on a scholarship. Her dorm room covered in volleyball medals and old photos of us. The house is quieter now, but not empty. It feels lived in. Peaceful, like a storm finally passed and left the air clean. There's someone new, too. Her name's Karen. She isn't loud. Doesn't ask for more than what I can give. She just shows up, helps with dinner, laughs at my bad jokes, comes to Emily's games when she's home on weekends. She fits into the spaces Laura left behind not to fill them, but to honor them. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about how far we've come, about how close I was to giving up on everything. I used to think betrayal destroyed me. Truth is, it refined me. It stripped me down to the bone, forced me to see what actually matters. Not the big gestures or the perfect life that looks good on paper, but the small things, the quiet mornings, the people who stay, the laughter around a dinner table you built with your own hands. Love isn't fireworks. It's not lake views or fancy vacations or the illusion of excitement. Love is presence. It's showing up when no one's watching. It's holding on when it's easier to let go. I heard from someone that Laura's living alone now, renting a small apartment above a dry cleaner downtown, working as a receptionist. Same kind of job she had before she met me. The man she left us for, he's engaged to someone else. The fantasy's gone, but I don't feel anger anymore. Not even bitterness. Just a quiet sort of understanding. She taught me something without meaning to. The backup plan isn't the person you return to when your first choice fails. It's the life you build when someone shows you that you were never their first choice. And what we built, Jake, Emily, Karen, and me, isn't a backup anything. It's real. It's steady. It's peace. You know, I used to think the worst thing that could happen to a man was being betrayed, but I was wrong. The worst thing isn't losing someone you love, it's losing yourself, trying to keep them. That's what I learned. You can't save a marriage alone. You can't rebuild trust with someone who keeps walking out the same door. All you can do is stand tall, look at the ruins, and decide what kind of man you'll be when the dust settles. Because, brothers, there comes a moment when you have to stop begging to be seen and start building a life worth being part of. A life built on loyalty, presence, and peace. So let me ask you something. If you were me, if you were standing in that kitchen watching 22 years disappear through a door that no longer slammed, would you have taken her back? Or would you have done what I did? Choose peace over pain. Think about it. Because sometimes, the quietest decision a man makes is the loudest thing he'll ever say. Love that stays doesn't need fireworks. It doesn't need grand gestures or perfect words. It just needs loyalty. It needs someone who shows up. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done? Have you ever had to choose between love and peace, and found out they weren't the same thing? Share your story in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe if this story hits something real for you. Because every day, men like us rise from betrayal stronger than before, and brother, that's where the real victory begins.